Hey sketchy friends, so it occurred to me that perhaps some of you, or probably most of you, don't know this, but I have zero art education, and I mean zero. I actually sucked at art at school, and I was kind of only interested in like graffiti style art or street art, and this kind of didn't really jibe with the kind of rural English school art lessons that I was in at the time. So how on earth did I end up working full-time teaching people how to draw and paint? Well, it actually starts with a deck of tarot cards. I actually very rarely mention this, but I am a lifelong tarot enthusiast. I didn't really read for anyone, I don't really read for anyone, but I just love the cards so much, the history, the symbology, the artwork, the mystery. Tarot just really sparks inspiration and intrigue within me. And my mum, my nan, and my auntie bought me my first deck of tarot cards when I was about 12 years old, I think. So fast forward to my mid-20s, probably somewhere around 2012, I think. And for some harebrained reason, I decided that I would like to create my own deck of tarot cards. I had a whole theme in mind, 1800s London, with a name planned and everything, and I could even see some of the cards, some of the designs really clearly in my head as well. The minute I tried to put any kind of design down on paper, I realized we had a problem. I had to learn to draw before I could even think about designing my deck. That's how I felt anyway. So I bought a book, Keys to Drawing, and I worked my way through it. I thought my drawings were okay, but kind of still life pencil sketches weren't really enough for me, and I wanted to try and find out how to get to that next stage. So I think around that time, Pinterest was getting kind of big. I don't think Instagram was a thing yet. And I would scroll through Pinterest and just see these amazing illustrations, wondering how I could move from my little pencil scratches onto kind of producing some of these full color masterpieces that I was seeing. So through this kind of endless scrolling and looking at beautiful artwork, I actually discovered that I really love sketchbooks and sketchbook art as kind of a medium in its own right. I'd love to pinpoint the exact moment when I realized that travel sketching and subsequently urban sketching was a thing that seemed to really just set me alight. I remember buying Danny Gregory's book, An Illustrated Journey, An Illustrated Life. An Illustrated Life was the first one I got. And then followed by Everyday Matters. And just, wow, I was absolutely blown away. Danny's sketching style just seemed so accessible to me, and a cross between sketching and journaling, recording your own life. I thought this is something I could do. In 2013, I traveled to Hong Kong to visit my best friend who was living there at the time, and I took a sketchbook with me, determined to try this whole travel sketching stuff. Needless to say, I only did about 3 sketches the entire time I was there, all in pencil, but hey, I'd actually made a start, taken a sketchbook with me, and I tried to draw on my travels. At that time, I was living in South London, and so I'd take a few strolls around as well and see if I could draw something along the way. I'll be honest though, I was absolutely terrified to get my sketchbook out in public for fear of judgment and ridicule. I know quite a few of you can probably relate to that as well. So I was only sort of vaguely aware of the Urban Sketchers organisation at that time, but being a grade A introvert and really shy, I promise you I am very shy, there was no way I was going to go and meet up with a bunch of strangers to try and sketch with them, especially when I still felt like I couldn't really draw very well. So I remember moving out of London and working at a sprawling plant nursery. I think this is probably about 2014, and I would sit in my car at lunchtime and draw the other cars in the car park. And again, I was so scared of being caught drawing. I don't know why I was so nervous about it. So I was enjoying doing these little sketches, but I was really distracted by other styles of art as well. I was distracted by things like tattoos and tattoo art. I'm a big fan of tattoos, as some of you know, you've seen my arms. Street art and illustrations with markers, graffiti lettering, So my focus was just completely scattered. Speaking of which, if you would like to expand your creativity, I would highly recommend checking out Skillshare. So the great thing about Skillshare is that they've got classes on everything you can imagine, especially if you're into learning creative stuff, animation, creative writing, graphic design, illustration, even music as well. But they also have loads on business and marketing as well, which is something I'm getting interested in, widening my horizons about what people are up to and stuff. So there are things called learning paths, which is where classes have been curated into paths. You can start at one class and you can carry on and then take another class, and it builds on your skills from the video before. So you get like a nice set of 5 videos there. So for example, this is something that I'm looking at taking soon, which is email marketing. There's lots of other business ones though as well, copywriting, creative productivity. So starting a project and sustaining it, I definitely think I need that one because I do suffer from shiny object syndrome. I get very distracted. But also these classes, I love watching these kinds of classes where someone's talking about building your dream business, hearing about people who've started from nothing and built a business that they absolutely love. So this lady, I think, was a kindergarten teacher, burned out kindergarten teacher, and she now works full-time as a marketing and social media content expert, has over 130,000 followers on TikTok. So, you know, you've got someone with some real authority there, but that you can still really relate to. So I'm very excited about this class. I think I am going to be watching it very soon. If you want to check it out, Skillshare, then you can get an entire month for free if you click on my link below. Just available to the first 500 people that click on the link below. So do check that out in the description. And I'd just really like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I hope that by sharing my journey with you and the things that have inspired me to build my own business around teaching people sketching will also inspire you as well. So it wasn't until 2016 when I turned 30, which seemed to send me down a complete spiral of freaking out. I decided I wanted to quit everything, including my band at the time, which I'd been in for about 6 years. I sold loads of my stuff and I decided to embark on a solo backpacking trip to Mexico and Central America. I'd never done anything like that before. I was a person at the time that was afraid to even go to the cinema or out for a meal by myself. I really wanted to do it though, so I just had to be brave. I decided I wanted to sketch something on this trip every single day, and I was going away for like 3 or 4 months. No matter how simple or small it was, I promised myself I would sketch something that I saw every single day. My work colleagues from the job that I left to go on this trip even bought me a sketchbook with a map of Mexico on it as well, which was really, really sweet because they knew what I wanted to do. So this is where things actually really started to take off for me. I just wanted to sketch all the time, and occasionally people would see what I was doing. I seemed to be less shy about doing it in a foreign country. No one knew who I was, and I was less fearful of judgment, I suppose. It was a great conversation point. People wanted to know what I was doing. So even though my drawings weren't very good at all, people still enjoyed seeing them, and they were like, oh, this is such an interesting thing to do. And it's just, they could see the value that even though I wasn't drawing really, really well, that it was still like a cathartic and relaxing and mindful thing, and a great way to capture my trip as well. By the way, if you want to check out those sketches, I've got them recorded in an ebook. So right from that very first trip, I show you those daily drawings that I did, and then onwards through my various travels through the years, and you can see the progression through the years. So I think it's really interesting if you want to check that out and you want to get inspired, and I want to show you that you can do this as well. So I'll put the link to that in the description below. But anyway, to cut a long story much shorter, I came home from that trip. I returned to my band, but I kept traveling as much as possible, and I ended up joining an adventure travel company, and I got to visit some amazing places like Iran, Somalia and Ethiopia. But I then left my band again and I actually ended up in South Africa for a little while to spend time with my now husband. And for the rest of 2019, I lived in Mexico learning silversmithing. You can tell I've got ants in my pants, right? So you're probably thinking, yeah, and how did all of that lead you to working full-time, teaching people travel sketching? Well, the short answer is COVID-19 happened. I was in South Sudan at the time, camping with the Mundari tribe. And I didn't even know what COVID was, but I called Duncan, who was then my boyfriend, now is my husband. Just before leaving South Sudan, I called him because we were supposed to be meeting up in London to do a trip around Scotland, which we never got to do, but we finally did that in 2023. I do have a sketchbook tour video of that if you would like to see it. So another funny, although not funny at the time, story ensued at the airport in Ethiopia, and I managed to get the last seat on the last plane out of there to Johannesburg to go and see Duncan basically. And they closed the border the next day. So I didn't end up leaving South Africa for a year after that. Obviously working in the travel industry wasn't going to bring me any revenue for the next little while. So while sitting in self-imposed quarantine, I had to think of a plan. And I was listening to a podcast called Do You Even Blog? And the presenter was interviewing a guy called Jim from something called Income School. It was a great interview, and this guy, Jim, sounded really sincere, really down to earth, and they promised to teach you how to make a full-time living on the internet, which is exactly what I needed at the time. So I thought about it for a few days because it wasn't the cheapest thing to invest in for me at that time. But I did take the plunge, and the first thing you needed to do was choose your niche or your area of interest. So I was like, well, that's easy, that's sketching. So from there, I started my blog, urbansketchingworld.com, and I started to try and write helpful articles about everything I could think of to do with urban and travel sketching. And several months later, I realized that it would probably be wise to start a YouTube channel, though I really didn't feel like I knew enough to make videos. But I thought, well, let me just share some time-lapse videos of my sketching process to get started with and see what happens. So I kept working at it, and really hard as well, and things eventually took off. My posts were ranking highly on Google. One of my YouTube videos went viral actually whilst I was in Egypt. When I left South Africa that year later, one of my videos went viral, and I was like, whoa, what is going on? It was crazy. So then I decided to make an ebook collecting all of my sketches together, which I mentioned earlier. The link is in the description, and that also sold quite nicely. And then I decided to make my online course, Sketch Your Adventures, which sold well and continues to sell well, and I get really great feedback from that course. So all of this was just following the advice from the Income School course. I feel like it was the best decision I ever made to start my own little business, to try and earn income on the internet. I made that decision the day after my birthday, so the 25th of March 2020. I remember it very well, sat on the floor of an Airbnb apartment, just wondering what on earth I was going to do with myself. So fast forward, and I now have a super cool on-demand video service called Pretty Sketchy TV, a beginner's guide to urban sketching book, which has been published by a US publisher, over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm teaching sketching vacation workshops, such as in Spain, and with other invites to do the same around the world. So it's absolutely amazing. All this with zero art education, remember. It is really hard work. There's so many balls to juggle, so many skills to learn. And that's not even touching on producing all of the content for the art-related stuff as well. But what I can say is it's been extremely rewarding. I receive emails every day of people thanking me for the content that I put out and that I share, and that I've encouraged them to start sketching. And that's basically all I could possibly wish for, because it's just, yeah, I feel really grateful to be able to help people reignite their passion for sketching or start their passion for sketching. So this whole story is to say, if I can learn how to sketch, you can too. I have no art education, just excitement and willingness to learn. So if you want to learn from me, you can join my online course, Sketch Your Adventures, that I mentioned earlier. And if you want to develop your own style and really learn how to sketch with freedom, then maybe prettysketchy.tv would be the place for you. Link is in the description below. And I just want to thank you guys for watching this video, for supporting my journey. I hope it's inspired you. You can do this, you've got this, and I'm available to you if you need any help whatsoever. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.